Welcome to Matters Financial and Geopolitical from the Frontier. Thank you for stopping by as ever. What a week it's been. Let me start with this. I think we're in front of an enormous bullish move in the dollar. It's just getting going. And, these are signs I've seen many years ago, particularly in emerging markets. So I think my third trade of the year, and remember the first was the yen, but of course now forget that because we were in a strong dollar story. The second one was selling long-term bond yields, that was in September. And the third one is buy the dollar right now, right here, across the board, because we're going to move up really dramatically. If you've got a moment, have a look at the interview I did with the 87-year-old Dr.Manu Chandaria, the chairman and CEO of Comcraft. A wonderful man and really interesting. Do have a listen. Now, after a lot of thought and obviously a lot of issues which one has to hurdle, given some of the linguistic warfare that Donald Trump deployed in the primary election, I'm bullish about him. And I think expectations are set very low, so this is a big opportunity in that context. Firstly, I like this idea that Jamie Dimon is being considered for Treasury Secretary, lending hope to non-crazy people everywhere, Vanity Fair, so that's interesting. I think cutting taxes, going big on infrastructure are the right and big macro moves to make. And I think we're going to see higher interest rates, we're already seeing that move, a normalization of that. So I'm all buy the dollar because US interest rates will continue to climb and normalize. The Dow had a meteoric rise and closed at a record on a long scale. Have a look at Holger's chart. From hero to zero, Dow Jones jumps to record as investors have learned to love Trump. And then look at this, America's biggest trading partners. And it's still not clear, but I think he's going to be more aggressive in terms of tariffs and so forth. So you can look and see who's likely to get hit. The US 30-year yield has jumped 32 basis points this week, biggest weekly rise in 7 years. There have only been 8 bigger weekly rises in the last 30 years. And this is the point I was making in my article on the 12th of September when I spoke about mirrors on the ceiling, the pink champagne on ice. And she said, we are all just prisoners here of our own device. Last thing I remember, I was running for the door. I had to find the passage back to the place I was before. Relax, said the night man, we are programmed to receive. You can check out any time you like, but you can never leave. And I was saying what is clear is that we're at the fag end of this party. And have a look at this, the price of 30-year German bonds have plunged by 14% since the summer. Home Thoughts this morning, Hannah was mourning Hillary Clinton's loss and asked me what I thought about Hillary's speech in the glass ceiling. And I said it must be excruciating to have been so close, to have been inside the White House all those years as the wife of the President and Secretary of State, and have seen it slip through your fingers. And we mulled that for a while. I like the splendid view out to the Indian Ocean from Fort Jesus, Mombasa. The photos by Terry Wanderi. Fort Jesus was built by the Portuguese in 1593 to 1596 to the designs of Giovanni Battista Cairati to protect the port of Mombasa. Have a look at this photograph of the fort that I took from English Point. The 1976 film that foretold the rise of Trump, this is Spectator Culture. The film is called Network, and it is brilliant. I hadn't actually watched it before, and I listened to it now. And, there's a link I put up there, which is fantastic. You've meddled with the primary forces of nature, Mr. Beale, and I won't have it. Is that clear? You think you merely stopped a business deal? That is not the case. The Arabs have taken billions of dollars out of this country, and now they must put it back. It is ebb and flow, tide and gravity. It is ecological balance. You are an old man who thinks in terms of nations and peoples. There are no nations, there are no peoples, there are no Russians, there are no Arabs, there are no third worlds, there is no West, There is only one holistic system of systems, one vast and inane interwoven, interacting, multivariate, multinational dominion of dollars, petrodollars, electrodollars, multi-dollars, Reichmarks, rands, rubles, pounds, and shekels. Listen to it, it's brilliant. And then I like this code hidden in Stone Age art, maybe the root of human writing. Have a look. I took this photograph from the 8th floor. Terrible smoking, and I found the 8th floor above me here. It's empty. Lovely view over Nairobi. This photograph I took is of looking towards Riverside Drive. You can still see the trees are still there, but they're going at a rapid clip everywhere else. And the second photograph is looking down towards the city centre. Political reflections. Canadians expect me to work with whomever Americans elect to be their president. This is Justin Trudeau. Exactly. Donald Trump and Barack Obama met at the White House, very conciliatory. Trump said it was a great honor to meet President Obama for transition talks at the White House. Mr. Obama said he was encouraged by their excellent and wide-ranging conversation lasting over an hour. I think President Trump started his pivot with his victory speech, and I think he's going to surprise to the upside, in fact. They met for 90-plus minutes of excellent conversation and uncharacteristic praise, says the Los Angeles Times. The Spectator saying, Trump, it must be acknowledged, however, that he is the greatest political entrepreneur of our time. Donald J. Trump's long, triumphant march to the White House didn't start on the 16th of June 2015, when he announced his candidacy at the Trump Tower in Manhattan. It began 4 years ago, on 19th November 2012. On that day, days after President Obama defeated Mitt Romney, Trump filed a trademark application for the slogan, Make America Great Again. It was actually Ronald Reagan's successful presidential campaign of 1980 that coined the phrase. But Make America Great Again was even more potent in 2015, 2016. And saying, who's laughing now? Those silly red hats proved to be a PR masterstroke. While the snobs were sneering, Trump was creating a movement that would take over America. And saying he's shown a genius for snarling at people in a way that Americans, like the names he gave his opponents, Crooked Hillary, Lion, Ted, Little Marco, Low Energy Jeb, I called it linguistic warfare, were devastatingly catchy. But his real talent was his ability to tell America that it was a loser and the country was a wreck. The US, we don't have victories anymore. We used to be moaned at the campaign launch. The US has become a dumping ground for everybody else's problems. I wrote a piece immediately after the results, and I said, you know, markets are now a prisoner of the populist rhetoric, and saying that the new populist zeitgeist has legs, and Marine Le Pen and Frexit, Italexit, Nixit, all look much more likely than ever before. And what is clear is that the internet has been a significant disruptor, allowing populist politicians to go over the top. The narrative is no longer controlled, it's being written as we speak, and it's being written by the likes of Trump and the UK Independence Party's Nigel Farage. We are now at an inflection point, and it's plain to see. And I'm saying President Trump will surely reset the geopolitical world order. He's already spoken of being able to get along with Putin. And the Baltic states and Ukraine's Poroshenko will be worried that they might well be thrown under a bus. The geopolitical grandmaster Putin is a very big winner. The rebels in Syria, who interestingly are not Syrian, will surely be extinguished in a foreign land, and President Assad has outlasted another American president. Talking about the anti-globalization, Mexico being at the bleeding edge, but ultimately, overall I'm bullish, because I think the stock market's going to rally like anything. The dollar's going up like crazy, interest rates are going back up, he is going to cut taxes, it's going to be stimulative, they need to spend money on the infrastructure. I've been over there, you know, it's not very new. And then have a look at, prior to the election, I put my thoughts out there at Mindspeak about such an outcome. Putin is at the Kremlin in Moscow, but interestingly, Russia is saying it was in contact with President-elect Trump's team during the US election campaign, despite repeated denials by the Republican candidate's advisors that any links existed. 5th of October 2015, I wrote about how Putin is a geopolitical grandmaster, and indeed he is. This photograph I found pretty arresting. Libération. Aux Philippines, le dictateur Marco C. Hérault. The Saudi Prince of Turkey says, I don't think President Trump should scrap the Iran nuclear deal worked on for a long time. There will be ramifications. That's interesting. I thought that would be the first thing they want scrapping. Currency markets, euro dollar 109.09, dollar index 98.67, new target 110. Japanese yen 106.53, Swiss franc 0.9866, pound 125.64, Aussie. Pound seems to have put it at the bottom. Aussie 0.7623, India rupee 66.975, South Korean won 11.6103, the Real 339.32, Egyptian pound 16.874, and the Rand back over 14.04, target 15. Dollar index, I'll put up a 3-month chart. My target was 100 actually, and we're about to blow through that before the end of the year. New target 110, euro dollar 109.06, parity eventually. Look at this, the split between emerging and developed markets after the Trump win. Very interesting reading. Copper price is up 13.5% so far this week. Biggest weekly rise in 5 years. This is on the infrastructure play. Gold, well, never closed above 1,300, did it? Repelled by that level, 1261 now. Global food prices on a sugar and dairy high, says the FT. The food price index published by the UN Food and Agriculture Organization rose 9.1% last month from the last time last year and 0.7% from September. Sugar rose 3.4% in October amid reports of production shortfalls in Brazil's key sugar growing region. Dairy rose 3.9% from September. Emerging markets, Indonesia's central bank steps in after rupiah plunges the most since 2011. Emerging market currencies are getting trumped, feeling the pain, dollar strength, high US yields. Google shows what many Indians want to know, how to launder cash. It's amazing, isn't it? That Google inquiry tells you in real time what's going on. Telegraph, Dubai has agreed a deal with US startup Hyperloop One to evaluate the construction of a near supersonic transport link between Dubai and Abu Dhabi. They're saying it's going to take 12 minutes. And it is the real transit state, a connection point in an interconnected century. If you're going to be there, then you do this kind of thing. Frontier markets, I met her in the Sundarbans, a recent widow, her husband taken by a tiger while crab hunting. Donald Trump in Sub-Saharan Africa, what will change with the new US president-elect, asks Newsweek. Africa featured not at all in the presidential campaign, not once, in point of fact, because I listened to all of them, with slight reference to jihadi radicalism, and even that was centered on Libya, not Sub-Saharan Africa. US trade ties mostly involve importing African primary products, especially petroleum and minerals, and limited investment in frontier markets. Not correct. Take our Eurobond, for example, 66% of it was bought by North America. So I disagree with that Newsweek comment. There is a concessionary trade agreement between the US and Africa, the AGOA. I think that's going to be diluted, recently renewed as a little consequence for the US economy. And then an interesting comment, which I agree with, this is in Congo Research Group, saying the Kabila administration is not known for quick reactions. It can take them days or even weeks to react publicly to massacres in the eastern Congo, for example. This morning, however, just hours after Trump made his victory speech, Kabila wrote to congratulate him on his brilliant election. To be clear, it's not that Trump would be a great friend to Kabila, it is simply that a Trump administration is unlikely to think that Congo, Africa for that matter, is much of a priority, and they will be hard-pressed to find people who know much about the continent. So I have to agree with that, and I think for the strong men in Africa and other parts of the world, they're probably cheering Trump's election from the rooftops. Potential economic decline, this is interesting. If Trump really does impose a 45% tariff on imports from China, it will further slow down growth in that economy, with knock-on effects into Africa, adversely affect commodity-dependent African economies, Nigeria, Angola, Equatorial Guinea, Sudan, South Sudan, Chad, Zambia, Congo, Brazzaville, and DR Congo. So interesting. Demonstrations have been banned, media restricted in the Congo, taking more aggressive measures, shutting down radio. These developments come less than 6 weeks before the December 19 deadline for when President Kabila is due to step down at the end of his constitutionally mandated 2-term limit. I like this photograph, neighbourhood sides in Braamfontein. South Africa's Zuma defeated a no-confidence vote again in Parliament. I still find it incredible that the mighty ANC, which should have been the lodestar for the continent, is reduced to being captured by President Zuma, who in turn has been captured by the Guptas. So in fact, the Guptas have captured the ANC. South African all shares up 1.58% this year. Dollar rand back over 14, now looking at 15, I think. The Egyptian pound stabilized a bit, improved 16.874. The Egyptian stock market is up a monstrous 52.56% this year. That's all to do with the FX. Nigeria security agents raid black market FX dealers to stop slide of Naira. Dealers who trade at an exchange rate weaker than 400 Naira per dollar face arrest and prosecution from the State Security Service. Foreign exchange bureaus agreed to control the market so we will have sanity. They have the backing of the central bank on the new rates. The Naira strengthened to around 400 on the black market from 460. The trade, if you could, is to go limit short the Naira at 400 at the Bureau de Change. Nigeria cannot keep this up anymore. It's dysfunctional and it's not going to work. And that tsunami I spoke about, more than a year ago, is a whole lot closer. And the President and Emefiele are like 21st century King Canutes. I'll put up a photograph of President Buhari and his central bank governor Emefiele. I think President Buhari is playing Russian roulette. 5 of the chambers are loaded. This is going to end badly, really badly. In January 2015, I was talking about a tsunami and Emefiele's finger in the dike strategy, but this is like the end game now. Nigerian all shares down 8.45% this year. The Ghana Stock Exchange down 15.42% this year. Kenya gleams on Africa's bright side, says Bloomberg View. There's been nothing but trouble for much of Africa as the price of oil plummeted 55% during the past 2.5 years. But there's a brighter side to the sub-Saharan African continent. Kenya, the number 3 economy measured by gross domestic product, is turning the oil debacle into a bonanza. Kenya's refined petroleum products almost tripled to 12% of exports from 4.5% in 2010. Agriculture, including tea, flowers, coffee and legumes, still represents the biggest share at more than 30%. Refined petroleum and related exports, meanwhile, have become the fastest growing and second largest share of what the country sells outside its borders. 67 companies in the Nairobi Securities Exchange produced a total return, income and appreciation of 5.4% during the past 12 months. By comparison, the 93 companies from 18 countries in the MSI Frontier Market 100 Net Index were little changed, measured in US dollars. Investors are buying Nairobi stocks with a 23% discount relative to emerging market shares on a price-to-earnings basis. 3 of the best-performing stocks in Kenya this year directly correlate to the economy's relatively robust expansion: airlines, telecom, and publishing. Kenya Airways, that's up just shy of 50%, but they had it at 36.7%. I'm not sure why. Safaricom at 31.4% total return. Longhorn Publishers 29.2%. Talks about the stability of the Kenyan shilling, which remains the least volatile of the 8 most traded African currencies and among the continent's best performers. And I wrote about this in February when I said Kenya and East Africa is on the up as the rest of sub-Saharan Africa slumps. For a while I've been saying that Kenya and East Africa looks like a bright star in what increasingly looks like a darkening sub-Saharan sky. The shilling has been Teflon since October, and its performance is a signal in the noise. I think the shilling has been one of the least volatile currencies. I think domestic factors are going to play a bigger role, but I do worry that AGOA is going to be diluted, and Kenya has been a beneficiary of AGOA. Nairobi all share down 3.99% this year. NSE 20 down 19.65% this year. Kenya has appointed a commercial director, which is good. I mean, they've moved with some dispatch since Michael's got there, and they've done the simple things which was not being done before. Look at your pricing, renegotiate with KLM. He's honed in on the issues. That's why I think the share price has turned bullish. Once again, thank you. Have a great week.